We have a treat today. I have my friend Eric Metaxas with us. Welcome back to Tennessee, Eric.
Thrilled to be here.
You know, I was trying to remember. We met the first time I remember meeting. You were doing your tour promoting Bonhoeffer.
Yeah.
And how the world has changed, how God has blessed our lives. I mean, there's more than water under that bridge.
Yeah.
But you have a new tome.
Yeah.
I love the tiny books you write. This one is Revolution.
Yep.
You need to see this part of the book too.
Yeah.
I have read it. It's doable.
Well, listen, I'm telling you, Alan, I have to say this up front because people don't believe it. I cannot tell you how many people have said to me, I couldn't put it down. It's a page turner. It reads like a novel. That, as a writer, that's the greatest thing you could hear. But I've heard that even if you just read the Amazon reviews. I mean, I'm not soliciting them. So listen, I'll say this up front too. It's an amazing true story. It's inspiring. It's encouraging. So I would encourage people to read it. And then I will bully them into reading it. Because we have to read it. I mean, we have to know our history. I say this emphatically, but whatever. Yeah.
Can we send a copy to the lady at the Smithsonian?
Oh,
it's clearly having a little trouble interpreting our history. I said lady. I was being very generous to that woman.
Yeah.
That's directing the Smithsonian.
Now listen, these people they're crazy. They have bought into the propaganda over decades. Basically, it's why I wrote the book. I said we need a true accounting of the story. We haven't been getting that. In our lifetime, we've gotten a lot of crazy negativity and the true story is beautiful.
It is.
So I just wanted to tell that story.
And I want to get to the story, but it's more than that. They're not crazy. They're intellectually dishonest.
It's a spectrum. Some of them are intellectually dishonest. You're absolutely right. Some people are just deceived. It's a spectrum. It's just a spectrum. Okay. It's a spectrum of crazy.
You're kind today.
But I mean, it really depends because you talk to some people. And you and I have had this conversation that some people do not understand certain things. And so even if it's in front of them, they can't read it. It's like reading Chinese. When they see the language of faith, it doesn't compute. Now, there are some people that just hate the language of faith. But there are other people that genuinely don't get it. They just don't get it. And so they kind of ignore it and, talk about what they understand.
I believe that. But, if you dabbled in the occult, whether you do it intentionally or not, I think you get spiritual impediments that make it almost impossible to understand it. So the Revolution, this is readable. I started out to do the cheat like I do when I have lots of books to read. I was going to read every fourth chapter, and I thought, to heck with this. I want the rest of the story.
You're missing all the good jokes. The good jokes are in the second and third chapters.
It pulls you in. It's a narrative that pulls you through, and you get to know the people.
Yeah.
By the time you get to the end, there's not a lot of history books I read that bring tears to my eyes. And I know the story of Washington's farewell speech when he pulls his glasses out of his pocket. But when you're telling that story again, I've got tears running down my face. And I'm thinking, okay, Eric made me cry. I will confess when the camera's running. But
well, listen, this is all true. This is not a novel I wrote. This is all true. I just found what I think is the most exciting, important, humorous, stories and just put it all together. But I think that I keep saying this, we're responsible for this information. This is not extra credit. I didn't write this book for history buffs. I wrote the book for Americans. If you're an American, you need to know this stuff. If you can get this information better in a better place than this book, go for it. But I just said I want to put everything in one book so that everybody in the year of our supercentennial 250th can refamiliarize themselves. And I think it's an encouragement to us at this season, which frankly we need.
We do. So why the Revolution? You mentioned that in your 7 Men book, you had a chapter on Washington.
Well, it was just a weird, I never in my life ever thought I would write about the American Revolution. Never even crossed my mind once. And then about a little bit over 2 years ago, a friend of mine, very close friend, I mentioned him in the acknowledgments page, said to me that he had just read my chapter on George Washington in my book, 7 Men. And he said he was so moved by it. He says, Eric, you need to write the whole story of the Revolution. Now, this friend, Seth Ward, when he talks, I listen. He's a very, very dear soul.
As opposed to like your friend Alan Jackson.
Well, no, because I have friends I have friends, millions of friends, that they have ideas for books, but there's something about Seth, if you know him, he doesn't just say, it's like,
Right.
when he said it, it kind of hit me. Like, is this the Lord speaking? Right? It was like one of those things. Yeah. Because normally I just go, nah. But this really kind of stopped me. And so I thought about it. And it was one of those things where the scope of it, I thought, the revolution. First of all, what is the revolution? What does that even mean? It's like, who's given me this assignment? Is this the Lord giving me an assignment to write the American Revolution? Well, I got to think about this. What was this going to be about? And then I realized, okay, the American Revolution we think of starts Lexington and Concord, the shot heard around the world, Bunker Hill and the war, and it ends, basically in Yorktown, 1781. That's the American Revolution. But John Adams said there was a revolution before the revolution. That is very interesting. That's when you start realizing what led up to Lexington and Concord. And I keep saying, in 1960, if you went around with a microphone, Main Street America, everybody knew this stuff. Everybody knew everything that's in that book. They knew it all. They knew the names, whatever. We have drifted away. And if you want to know why we're losing our liberties, or you want to know why things are crazy, why we're on this kind of crazy war with the insane left, or why the insane left even exists in America, it is because we have forgotten this. And so I said, I need to put it in a book. I need to make it readable. I need to get it out there. I need to get people excited we need to know our history. And I've said to people, that I'm, as usual, half joking. I said, this is like mandatory beach reading. This is like, if you're an American, you got to like suck it up and read this. You need to know this. You will be blessed. I believe that.
I agree.
But it's not, I think it's too late for us to say, well, it doesn't matter. We need to know this. We cannot get through what we're going through now unless we understand that, because that's our DNA. That's who we are. And to get through what we're going through now, we need to be armed with this history and this encouragement, of the truth.
Well, it reminded me in a way, the book of Acts doesn't have a conclusion. And I've always said it's because we're the 21st century edition.
Yes.
The story's still unfolding. Yeah. And one of the things I took away from this is this story's still unfolding.
As it's supposed to.
Don't read this like we're reading a history
No.
lesson. Read this to inform our decisions, not to go take up arms and shoot our adversaries.
Well, it's kind of like this book to me is kind of like the instruction booklet for, how do I live in a free nation? How do I keep freedom? How do we govern ourselves? How does that work? Well, where's the instruction? But the ultimate instruction book is the Bible. Where did all the ideas of the revolution come from? The Bible, which is the main takeaway of my research on this thing, is that this was all Christians doing Christian stuff. This is not compatible with Christianity. This is Christianity poured into political life and into the form of a new nation. That's what this is. And every American needs to know that. Every Christian certainly needs to know that, because it's true. But most of us didn't really know that. I didn't really know that. People always think like, oh, Eric, you must know all this stuff. Oh, you're smart. You went to Yale. You know the guy. I know nothing. I know this much. I just know enough that I'm going to do the research. And then when I do the research and I see this stuff, I'm embarrassed that I didn't know it. And then I feel this zeal. I got to tell the world this is like we're late to the party. We got to get on this, we got to get on the stick.
This year, we celebrate 250 years of God's faithfulness to our nation. From backyard picnics and ball games to laughter shared with family and friends, we've been given so many blessings to enjoy together. And in a world that feels increasingly divided, these moments remind us of what matters most: faith, freedom, family, and community. Alan Jackson Ministries wants to help you carry that message with you wherever you may go. This outdoor blanket and canvas tote bag are simple reminders of God's goodness and a way to spark meaningful conversations about faith and the hope we have in Him. Request your limited edition tote bag and outdoor blanket today with your gift of $100 or more at alanjackson.com or call 800-880-5102.
I have a degree in American history. I have a degree in history. But the cultural divide that you highlight, and particularly the opulence.
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking of a Gilded Age before the Gilded Age.
Yeah.
And you highlight that so well, and I think it's a relevant story for us because there was a consequence for standing up, and it had to do with comfort and convenience. It wasn't just principle.
Well, let's put it this way. The reason that, and again, I'm not going to pretend like I knew this beforehand. This is as I'm doing the research, I knew very little. I just knew my assignment is I want to tell the whole story. So starting with the end of the French and Indian War, kind of starts off the conflict between Great Britain and the colonists, which leads to all the crazy stuff, the Stamp Act and the Boston Massacre and the Boston Tea Party and Lexington and Chicago, all that stuff, and then the war. I just want to tell the story. But in the course of doing the research, I mean, I kid you not, I was not expecting any of this. I saw what I had never seen and never really heard ever, that this was a culture war, that the British elites were like the Hollywood elites. If you think of the Hollywood elites or the elites of the New York Times governing a town of homeschoolers in Oklahoma, the cultural divide was infinite. They spoke the same language. They're in the same country, but they could not be more opposite. And everywhere I looked, I saw more and more evidence of this. And I thought, how come I've not heard this before? The British were decadent. The British elites were decadent, cynical, corrupt, sneering at the Christian faith of the American colonists. Not just not sharing the faith, sneering at it, mocking it. That's kind of where we are today. You have the elites, the cultural elites. They don't speak the language that we do, and they think we're the bad guys. They think, oh, you're just a hypocrite. You're just nothing but a religious hypocrite, because nobody really believes that. We all know nobody really believes that. Well, yes, we do really believe that, and the colonists really believed it. The colonists, when I say the colonists, most of the folks in the 13 colonies were steeped in the Bible. The whole culture was Christian. Again, how come most people don't know that? Because that's true. This is not a Christian version of this history. This is the history.
Well, in fact, I thought you were, didn't go out of your way, but it was very fair-minded. You told the story in a way that you're not always selling Christianity.
No, because I want everybody to read this book. This is not a book for Christians. This is a book for anybody who's an American.
No, you did that well.
And it's like I want people to get, this is the true story. This is not my version of the story. Believe me, I'm not, I said, as I did the research, it became clearer and clearer and clearer to me that even I just had not heard this. And I thought, how can we be laboring in the dark for decades, not understanding that this is the founding of the nation? This was profound Christians. The lie, they were deists, the lie that, just a few of them were Christian. That is such a lie. But again, it's only in doing the research that I realized the magnitude of this lie that's been sold to us. I mean, if you turned on, God forbid you watch, Ken Burns' PBS series, 12 Hours on the Revolution, you would think that faith had nothing to do with it. And I'm here to tell you, faith had everything, not a big part, everything came out of the Scripture and Christian faith. That's not debatable once you do the research, and then you think, but people aren't talking about it. People act like you could get liberty in America without the Christian faith. None of the founders believed that. There's not one, including Jefferson and Franklin. Why don't we all know that? Because that's true. So I put it in the book, but the book is not about that. The book is just the stories. But when you read the stories, you just say, well, there it is. I don't need to read a book about that. I just need to read the facts, and it kind of comes out. So, yeah.
Well, and you highlighted beyond the history, which I want to come back to some of the characters, but that even the birth of this nation coming forth on this continent prior to the Reformation, was from this vantage point, you can see the hand of God.
Well, you see, that's the thing is we could see it, they could see it, but modern historians never talk about it. They act like that's just crazy talk. Everybody involved at the time, including Thomas Paine, who was not some big Christian, they all saw the hand of God in the Reformation, They saw the hand of God in the discovery by Europeans of this new continent, where dissidents, where people who suddenly discover the God of the Bible, they want to read the Bible, they want the Bible translated in their own language, they're being persecuted in their countries, in Europe. Now there's a place they can go. Where would they go before?
It's like let the nut jobs go there.
Let the nut jobs go across the ocean, and they can form their little Christian communities and see how they do. Well, that's what happened. And everybody involved saw it as providential history, that this is God has done this. He's preparing us for a new era. And once you get to the 1760s and 1770s, the men of the revolution, they start putting it together like, you know what? We may have an opportunity now for these 13 colonies, because we're being persecuted together by Great Britain, that we could unify and create a nation based on this. Not just a colony in Massachusetts or a colony here, an entire nation based on these ideas. They were kind of aware that this looks like God's plan. Is God opening a door? And they all believed that this is a reprisal of the Israelites leaving Pharaoh and bondage in Egypt, coming out into the wilderness to look directly to God, to govern themselves, to make a covenant with God. That's how they all saw it. And again, even if you don't see it that way, you need to know that's how they saw it, right? So if you have a secular historian today who says, well, I don't believe that, you don't have to believe it, but you need to be aware that that's how they read the tea leaves, so to speak, yeah.
And you do a nice job. It's not like everybody involved were church mice. You know, the Sons of Liberty were on the edge of scoundrel.
I was going to say, you get some...
And they used the mobs.
Yes.
And which you're very candid about. So,
yeah.
But they still had a sense of faith and destiny and all of that woven into their carnal.
Well, I mean, again, you like anything, there's going to be a spectrum.
Right.
But
that's a good
the
word.
leaders, they did get this stuff, right? That they were the ones that, especially John Adams, but they were aware of the fact that we need to play this right. This is not about winning. This is about is this God's idea? If this is God's idea, we better behave correctly. So we can't have mob violence. We can't have, so that you get some of that, but that does not continue. That's, they're aware of the fact that that's not the path forward. This is not the French Revolution.
Right.
This is something else.
Yeah, it very much stands in contrast to that. I've learned as a pastor there's a tremendous difference in a crowd and a community of faith. When people decide to step out of the crowd and invest their time and their resources, they become a part of a community and it changes their lives. Well, I want to give you that invitation. I'm grateful you're a part of the crowd who watch the ministry. I want to ask you to consider becoming a monthly ministry partner. I believe if you'll make that regular commitment to what God is doing through this ministry, it'll bring momentum to your spiritual life and it will help us reach more people than we've ever reached with the gospel before. America is turning 250 years old. That's something that should unify us. We have so much to celebrate. There is no place like America. Our freedoms and liberties, they are unmatched in this world. Everything that's good about America, our laws, our opportunities, the prosperity we've enjoyed, well, they've come to us because of our faith. We've created a series of emails celebrating 250 years of our country. Find out how Christianity has played a role in this nation from its founding until now. You'll receive a new email each week throughout the series. Each one is designed to help you see our blessings and our heritage in a new way, how faith has played a powerful role all the way through. It's one way we're celebrating America's 250th. We hope you'll join us. You can sign up now at alanjackson.com/250. You did the research. You have favorites? Did you come out with some surprises? Somebody you really enjoyed as you did the work?
Yes. The number one is probably John Adams. John Adams should be 1,000 times more famous than Thomas Jefferson. John Adams was an amazing man of God and very humble and very funny, very acerbic. And he, like any of these great figures in history, they cared more about the cause than about their own glory. And because of that, in some cases, we don't know them so well. because they said, well, it's not about me. It's about we want to win. So Samuel Adams, second cousin to John Adams, John Hancock, Paul Revere, all the figures, the Sons of Liberty in the 1760s, while this is developing, they were, engaged in something. They thought, we can't stick our necks out too much here because the British they're gonna hang us, right? So we have to work behind the scenes. But if you work behind the scenes, you're not going to get the glory. But if you care about the cause, you don't care about getting the glory. But John Adams is kind of like that. He should be a Mount Rushmore. John Adams is a giant. And as I say, this is not to denigrate Jefferson, but Jefferson cannot hold a candle to John Adams. I'm just amazed.
But he made a tremendous sacrifice. I mean, the time he spent overseas working on all the things that had to be done.
Well, there's a ton of things you could say about John Adams, but I'll tell you, since I mentioned Jefferson, the reason I think Jefferson is so well known is because I think the people who don't like the God side of the story, they kind of pick Jefferson as like, he's our guy. He's the French Enlightenment rationalist guy, and we're going to go with him. We're going to push him. Now, that's not even that true of Jefferson, but the point is that they kind of created the Jefferson in their own image, that he was this French Enlightenment guy. He was, for the French Revolution, blah, 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 blah. So that's that lie that you could get liberty and equality without God. That's a lie. And the contrast, the reason the book is called Revolution, not the American Revolution, is because there has been only one revolution in world history that succeeded in doing what it wanted to do. That's the American Revolution. Why? Because they replaced an earthly king with God as king, and they knew that. The French Revolution said we're going to kill the king and queen. Then we're going to start killing the priests and nuns. We don't want God to have anything to do with this. This is a secular utopia. This is like a proto-Marxist view, yep. Right? How does that end? How does it go for the French? Can you get those things? They don't. They get a bloodbath. They get a nightmare bloodbath. And then they trade the king and queen for an emperor dictator named Napoleon. That is a very bad trade. It totally fails. So the lie that the secularists, many secular historians in our lifetime that kind of act like, well, this all came out of the French Enlightenment and it came out of they have really muddied the waters and confused it. I mean, some of it comes out of the Scottish Enlightenment, whatever. But the point is, where do the ideas? Where do all these ideas come from? They only come from the Bible. That's the only place these ideas come. So if you push the God of the Bible out, it's not going to end well. And so that's part of why I think they keep pushing Jefferson as opposed to Adams, because he's like he's their guy. They act like they can have your cake and eat it too, but it just doesn't work.
I want to give you a personal invitation to join my podcast, Culture and Christianity.
You don't compromise the truth, but you say it where the people know that you care about them.
We're trying to understand how to take our faith outside the walls of the church and live it out in the marketplace.
I just never understood the double standard, because they punished me while my peers were allowed to talk about how devastated they were that Roe versus Wade was overturned.
I brought in some friends, people that are trying to do this on a regular basis.
They're never going to stop me because the truth is the truth. I'd rather be on God's side than to be a coward.
We've been living in a season of unprecedented deception, propaganda, manipulation.
Our best option was to run. We were timing ourselves. I was trying to think, how can I protect my kids?
Well, I want to be a part of seeing culture and Christianity intersect. I hope you'll join the podcast soon. The reminders about Washington were really helpful to me, that on more than one occasion, he declined the opportunity to have been the ruler.
He's so godly, he just embarrasses all of us, doesn't he? Like, you just realize this is a man of such character.
That's the truth.
That you just think, was he real? And it's like, yeah, God created someone who had stellar character. And I'll tell you, Alan, it's interesting. It made me realize, I've been thinking this for years, but I haven't really said it. I was getting there with my book, Letter to the American Church, and whatever. We don't talk about character enough. We talk about theology. Oh, you're saved by grace. It's all Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. It's like, okay, and then what? You're saved. You believe. Now, it's supposed to be reflected in your character. We've kind of forgotten. We kind of act like, well, that doesn't matter. That's works righteousness. No, it's not works righteousness. It is obedience to God. The men of the Revolution, they got that. Washington got that. That virtue, character, you got to work on this stuff. It's not easy, right? And I really believe that the only path forward for us in America today is we have to get back to that, talking about character, talking about your character.
But it started young. They were young men
Yes.
when they stepped into this.
Oh, yeah.
And the pressure of it revealed their character. You know,
Yeah.
I think we have this imagination, I'm going to
Yeah.
get some character when I'm through sowing my wild oats and having my fun. And
gosh.
and then I'm going to go find some character at
Yeah.
Walmart.
Yeah.
Or order some from Amazon or something. And
Yeah.
it seems to me that we either start to build that in when we're young, or it's really difficult to sort that out.